Well, here we are for another conversation with not cheese this time, just the tugboat. I won't be talking to myself for the full time. I have our first real guest for 2015. Won't use his real name. We'll just call him Admiral Bonesaw, as he used to be known. Welcome to the show, Admiral.
Thanks for having me, Tugboat.
I figured today, based on some recent debate that we've had through text messages and just hatred spewing back and forth, that we should probably settle it like men on the open airwaves of the internet. So we'll have a nice
Fair enough.
open forum debate. The topic for tonight, as some of you may already know out there, is going back and forth on the Toronto Maple Leafs and whether they should quote unquote blow it up, whatever that means. I guess we'll find out. Or stay the course with pieces they have now and figure it out. So, being the gracious host that I am, I'll turn it over to you to hear your opening argument on why they should blow it up.
Alright. Well, why they should blow it up is because it's something, first of all, they've never done it in their history that I can think of. They've never purposely sort of bottomed out, sold off all their assets in order to accumulate a number of draft picks. They've never really been big on, drafting players, in quotation marks, or looking to build a team through the draft. They've always used trades, free agency, and since they've entered into the cap era, that hasn't been a feasible way to build a team and accumulate young talent. They've tried to acquire guys after they've already established themselves as NHL players. See Phil Kessel, and it's my feeling that taking that approach doesn't work in today's NHL, and really it only handcuffs you with big long-term contracts that push you up against the cap, even though you're a mediocre, middle of the pack, kind of always on the outside looking in NHL team. It's my thought that now realistically, I don't think they can quote unquote fully blow it up. I don't think it's possible to get rid of all of the big fat long term contracts that they have, like Dion, Phil Kessel, Clarkson. There's no way that they can realistically get rid of those.
Well, let's ignore reality for the time being and say that in a perfect world, like NHL, whatever version we're on now, you could just wheel and deal those players away for whatever you wanted. So just go with that and say that you could do that.
All right. Well, then why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you get rid of, free up all of that cap space? And I mean, in theory, if you're playing NHL on the Xbox or whatever, on that game, I think I feel that you would get better return for your assets. So Phil Kessel would get something better in return, Dion, and so on.
So you're saying trade the players at their current value?
Yeah, well, not all of them, but basically I would be willing to get rid of anybody but Morgan Riley and William Nylander and probably hold on to him.
Okay,
I
well,
mean, again, realistically, that's not going to happen. You're not going to get rid of that many. You're not going to completely clean house. But in order to, I think the biggest thing they need, or the biggest thing they would achieve in terms of blowing it up would be to free up cap space, which is an asset in and of itself, and acquire multiple draft picks. First and second rounder. First rounders are harder to come by. Teams aren't as willing to deal those. You don't have many guys that you can get first round draft picks to return for. Probably just Phil Kessel, maybe Dion, but probably not. So yeah, that's my opening thoughts, at least.
So I hear your arguments. I see little to no value in them. I'm gonna go ahead and just strike right back. I'm gonna aim, even though it's not really a rebuttal time. It's really opening statements or opening shots across the bow. I'm gonna go ahead and start to refute some of your things. For me, blowing it up, that's a lazy, short-sighted approach. What do you?
Short-sighted.
What do you? What do you?
Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, I'm talking about the vengeful, blow it up, like, Big T style of blow up, like, get rid of Fanuff, he's a bum, get rid of this guy, just trade him for a bag of pucks. Like the classic Josh Buchholz reaction. So, for me, that accomplishes very little. Fire sailing your assets below their long-term value is just a waste, a complete waste. Even if you get a couple of picks and you free up your cap space, which, by the way, what are you going to do with that extra cap space? Boom, you're going to sign more players, is what they've been doing, which is part of the problem. I think being right up against the cap like they are almost forces them to use the draft in a better way. So the other thing it would do was it would be completely strip your lineup of any potentially valuable pieces. So, I mean, you might as well just tell the Marlies take over and give the rest of the Leafs the rest of the year off. Go heal your injuries. The Marlies have it from here. What I think they really need to do, and you touched on it already a little bit, is they need to use the draft. Yes, you can't argue that. They need to get better at that. But they really need to retool and carefully analyze what they have. They need to take a good hard look at players like Phaneuf, Kessel, etc., and say, what do we actually have here? Do we have a scoring winger that makes $8 million a year, or some jerk that should be making $4.5 million and joining Alexander Semin on the bench? So you talked about blowing it up, and we talked about this briefly on the phone earlier, but I think that a blow-up's already happening. I think that they're in the midst of it. They hired Mark Hunter away from the London Knights. They need to trim a little bit more fat in the scouting department. And I don't know if it's a Moneyball type of scenario where you need to get rid of that room full of old, he looks like a ball player type of guys, and focus on guys that actually look at what they're dealing with. Like, okay, this guy could add 20 goals to our lineup. This guy's a checking winger. Not, David Clarkson's the best free agent available. Let's pay him whatever the market says. Because did they need him? They needed a top 6 right winger, but I don't know if he is a top 6 right winger. The other thing that they did that was a little bit before everything started to fall apart, etc., was they really trimmed some fat, quote unquote fat, in the GM office when they fired that cap idiot, the guy that was supposed to manage their cap and got them into trouble, Loisel, and then just general dummy follower Poulin. They got rid of those jerks and brought in the youngster there. What is he, 28 or something like that? He thinks more analytics, looks long term, looks at numbers, doesn't just say, that guy's 6'5". He could be, his ceiling is a third liner in the AHL. Let's draft him. Sorry, Frederick Gauthier. So what I think they need to do is look at what they have. I don't think they're using players the way that they're meant to be used. I think they're trying to make guys into something they're not. I look at Phaneuf as a prime example. He's not a shutdown defenseman. He's an offensive guy. He got drafted so high because he scored 20 goals for Calgary. Franzen's not a shutdown guy. Why those two are playing together blows my friggin' mind. And then they tried to put Gardner with Riley and they haven't done it lately, but they were putting them together, thinking, this is defense. That's 5 forwards. That's what you're doing. They need to add another defenseman, somebody like Polak, somebody like Robidaw, a plus-minus win, a guy that's going to play defense, the classic Tugboat style stay-at-home defenseman. Maybe gets 8 points a year, plus 25. Not afraid to throw the hits to fire the team up. And I'll get into what the team's lacking later, but another guy that you mentioned already, Kessel. Guy doesn't shoot. He only plays outside the dots. Never goes in the slot. Never hustles. coast constantly. Bozak's still playing college hockey all of a sudden. And then you have JVR, who should be a power forward like Lindros, the way he's built. You know, came through the Flyers system. I think he's from Pennsylvania. Had to be a Lindros fan growing up, and he plays like he's William Nylander. I think he just copied that kid's style. So, I don't know. And then you have Clarkson, who's just completely disengaged now. The start of the year, they put him on the third line with Corporal Komarov and said, go hit everything that moves. He did. He started scoring points. That line was successful, so they broke it up, trying to spread it across the lineup. Of course, it didn't work. So I think they can't make a move until they really know what they have on their team.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree with assessing what you have, and that's what's going to happen. They're not just, I mean, you can't just start dealing guys tomorrow just because you want to. Again, the contracts have handcuffed them. I don't think Notice will blast through the offseason. Actually, I think he'll probably be gone before the draft. And whether that means that Mark Hunter will take over as the GM or Dubas or a combination of those two guys, somebody else. But what you're kind of saying is the coaching issue. You're saying coach the right way, these guys can be successful or more successful than they have been.
I think the word's more motivated than coached.
So why wouldn't you bring in a guy like John Tortorella?
I'm not saying I wouldn't. I would say that I would bring in someone that can coach them.
He would be a disaster in Toronto.
He would. He's not built for that kind of stage. He would just melt away. Like, Vancouver's kind of a mini Toronto. No offense to Vancouver fans, but, well, they can sit on it, actually. They think they're such a big deal out there on the West Coast, but really Toronto is the beating heart of the Canadian hockey world. That's right, Josh. I said it.
Anyways.
So let's look at one piece, and you can poo on this if you want. I don't know, but so I think that right now they do have. I don't want to blow it up. I don't want to get rid of Phaneuf and Kessel unless you get something extraordinary like, you know, a first and a third, and then a roster player and a prospect. I think any player that makes over $6 million, you got to get at least 3 pieces back.
But what you're missing with the cap space thing, that's not. Cap space has value because the way the NHL works now is you draft young studs like John Tavares and John Taves. You sign them to 8 or 10-year deals worth anywhere from $6 to $10 million a year. So if you have to have that space available to keep. Once you do have a decent core, to be able to keep them. So that's why cap space is worth so much. Look what Montreal did, getting rid of Josh Georges and some of the guys that they got rid of to open up cap space to re-sign.
Yeah, but for the Leafs, they don't need to worry about that right now. Their big pieces are locked down, and they really have nothing in the cupboard coming forward. And you do once you draft a guy, you get 3 years to really free up space to sign him.
Well, then the issue is, like you're saying, I guess we're sort of saying the same thing. You have to decide on whether or not your core is good enough. Like, do you see Dion hoisting the cup?
Well, I've seen him hoist the cup many times on NHL 14. Here's going with you on this trail. I'm going to help you out here because I feel bad for you. So the current roster players have had some success this year. They're not the absolute apocalyptic mess garbage team that the media is making them out to be. So before Christmas, they were 10-1. Okay, that's overperformance. I agree with that. Since then, they're 4-13. Since December 16th. Yeah. So what does that add up to? 14-14.
Mediocrity. Yeah,
so,
they were 500 to make the playoffs.
So where's the real team? I think it's somewhere in the middle. Somewhere. I think realistically, without the injuries they have, which people are completely ignoring right now, if they have all their players, I think they're above 500. Are they in the playoff picture? They might be able to eke their way in, but I think they're missing 2 or 3 big pieces still. Not big pieces, but they're missing a couple of players, and they're also missing a couple of other things. So
yeah, but they're right up against the cap.
Yeah.
They're right up against it.
Yeah, there's a couple of players that they can move. So going along your lines of big contracts, Gardner signed a big one in the off season. He is playing the best he's ever played that I've seen lately.
Gardner?
Yeah, in the last couple of games.
Did you watch the playoff series against Boston? That was his best. That was his peak.
Okay, well, I mean recently, like he's playing better than he did in December. We'll put it that way. When I saw them play twice, but he's got high value, whether he's playing really good right now or not. I think he's peak and prime to be traded. Another guy is Lupul. If you look at the numbers, which I have, thanks triplep.com for that, but he's scoring at a higher rate than would be expected for his numbers. The biggest fault, they say he had low Corsi, which is really he just sucked at maintaining puck control.
I would say his biggest downfall is that he's injured.
He's made of glass, but when he plays, he scores. So his what I'm trying to say is his value currently, even on the IR, is higher than it's been in the last year and a half. And he's got a fairly sizable contract. He's under contract till 2018. Those are 2 guys that you can move. There's a desire for them. It's going to be hard to trade a guy like Kessler Phaneuf and get value out of it. Like there's rumors circulating right now about Phaneuf to LA for Mike Richards.
Yeah, that would be a bad trade.
So you're getting a really underperforming 30-year-old centerman who's basically a second or third line defensive specialist, when what you need is a first line center. It was funny, I read that either the Kings are circulating that rumor or the guy's agent who's married to an actress is circulating that rumor.
Yeah.
It's kind of suspicious.
I think that would be a terrible trade. You're trading one of your problems for somebody else's problem.
Yeah, and hoping the change of scenery makes it better.
And Dion signed for another 6 years or whatever it is after this one.
Yeah, and I think that if they have you ever watched the Leafs play in overtime?
Have you ever watched them play in overtime? Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever seen how dominant Phaneuf can be in overtime when they take the leash off of him and say, "Okay, don't just play defense now." And in 4-on-4 situations, he can go end to end, control the play, circle the net, make passes. I've seen him score quite a few winning goals. Like that's the guy that started his career in Calgary. All of a sudden, he shows up when the game's on the line, and he has nothing to lose. That he should not be playing 30 minutes a game. He needs to be playing 20 minutes a game and playing an offensive style. Then he's worth $6 million or whatever they're paying him.
Getting paid seven for seven or something like that.
Yeah, that's outrageous for the player that they have right now. That's too much.
Yeah, Drew Doughty's I think he might be getting paid less.
Yeah, and he played 33 minutes the other night.
Who? Enough?
No, Doughty.
Yeah. That's what, but if you look at the teams that have won recently, you need a big stud center, or maybe two, and a really good puck-moving defenseman who can play a lot of minutes and run your power play and be good defensively, like Drew Doughty or Duncan Keith or Zdeno, baby.
So I see Morgan Riley as a better fit for that than Jake Gardner, just from a positioning and defensive standpoint. So I would trade full on right now in a heartbeat. I would trade Gardner to Colorado for Ryan O'Reilly.
Ryan O'Reilly, I have no problem with him other than it's almost I would say you won't even get younger than that.
So that brings me to the next thing. So, and we talked about kind of what it takes to win and stuff like that. Obviously, goaltending's in there, which the goaltending has been a little, suspect as of late. But there's three big things that all successful teams have in common. One is effort, two is heart, three is character. And it was beat to death at the start of the year that the Leafs don't have any character and they don't have any heart, but they were going to put in the effort. Well, they did for a while. The last 6 games, I haven't seen the effort. So I think that adding a guy like O'Reilly gives you more character and more heart. Certainly Komarov exudes both of those as well as effort for the most part when he's not brain dead from Ovechkin scrambling his brains. But I think that, if you look at teams where they just loaded up with stars and went after big names, like Dallas is the biggest one for me. And they're around the Leafs level. They win. They've got a really good top 6 in my mind. Carolina went out and bought a bunch of players like Semin and Jordan Staal, which actually was a strong move. And then you have Minnesota, who just went out and bought a team, and they made it through the first round, didn't they, last year?
Minnesota, I can't remember.
They didn't win the cup anyways.
I don't think so, actually. I think they lost the first round. I can't remember. They didn't go beyond the second for sure.
Now look at teams like Nashville that have solid players. They don't have any huge superstars yet. They will with Philip Forsberg will be a superstar. And Shea Weber's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say Shea Weber's pretty good.
And Pecorini, yeah, when he's not hurt, he plays pretty well. But other than that, they got a lot of guys like Roman Josi. Who heard of Roman Josi before he started playing with Weber?
Well, Forsberg is whatever his name is, Philip or Flip.
Yeah,
or
Philip.
He's pretty good. So
yeah. He'll win
Owen
Rookie of the Year.
Owen Wilson's a good young centerman who I think he's pretty offensively minded, and Barry Trotz is more of a defensive coach. So Pierre Laviolette is kind of let the boys.
Yeah, so they're using players in a way that allows them to be successful.
Yeah.
But those guys have a lot of character guys, a lot of guys that worked really hard, like guys like Mike Fisher, guys that have a lot of heart. And I don't mind praising Mike Fisher, even though he used to be a senator. But those are successful teams have those 3 qualities, and I don't think that the Leafs do. And I think those are, if they're going to make moves, they need to keep that kind of thing in mind. And of course, cap is just a reality in today's NHL. You got to watch that. But I think their new style of play, and when asked about it, they asked what's his name, Horacek. They said, well, since your team can't score, you're going to open it back up and let them play how they did under Carlisle? And he says, no, I'm not going to do that. The best teams in the league win by playing this way, and this is how we're going to play. So I think they're getting better defensively in their own end. They're making only a few massive glaring mistakes a game that of course cost them the games, but I think they just need to go back to the effort. I've watched the last 3 or 4 games, and I even stayed up late and watched part of the San Jose game until I got too disgusted, but they don't move their feet, and that's basic pee-wee hockey. Move your feet, finish your check, shoot at the net. Those are 3 things that they don't do.
Well, then this is a good time to see what players are worth keeping and worth getting rid of.
Yeah, and I think I named the 2 that are the most popular choices right now, and I think personally that the players are just. It seems like they're just waiting for something or looking for something, waiting for someone else to do something, so that it'll save them from being responsible for this. I think that they're just hoping that they try to blow it up and do a fire sale so they can write off their whole season and go, oh, well, they got rid of all our best players. What do you expect? Or everyone got hurt. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Of course we lost every game.
I feel like, they won't be able to make any significant moves probably until the off-season around the draft or free agency time. So they might make ship out a few minor guys, like make some minor moves. Maybe guys' contracts are up.
I think they can get rid of Lupul at the deadline. Lupul or Gardner, with Lupul being the kind of more prominent choice.
Yeah, because he's older and.
Yeah, and he has a terrible history of injuries.
Yeah.
But you sell the promise.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, of course, but you sell the promise of, well, look at his numbers when he was healthy, and try to dupe another GM or someone who's desperate to create some depth in their secondary scoring to pick him up. And then that's where you aim for like an AHL player or, you know, a younger prospect, if that's such a thing, if there's still got guys in junior, and maybe a draft pick.
Yeah. Well, as long as the other team has cap space, take them on. And that's the thing. Get rid of those big contracts. Like if you wanted to get rid of Clarkson, you might have to take back somebody else's terrible contract.
Yeah, Clarkson's not playing well enough to be traded for what they're paying him.
No, you could find some sucker to take him.
Oh, you could, but you're like you said, you're gonna have to take back garbage. If you put garbage out, you're gonna have to take garbage back in to pull that off.
Yeah, or you'll have to pay half of the salary, which will count against your cap hit. So got rid of the player. If the player is a really bad influence on the rest of the team and you desperately want him out, then maybe that's the route that you can take.
But I don't think he's a bad dressing room guy. I haven't heard anything along those lines.
Yeah,
it sounds like they're all... Yeah. The only guy that I would consider a bad dressing room guy at this point is maybe Phil Kessel, but I think he's just... He doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve like some of the other guys. Same with Van Riemsdyk. They just... When they were 10-1, they kind of had the same look to them, and when they're terrible, they have the same look to them. I mean, you can tell that Phil's getting frustrated with all the questions and berating and stuff like that, and I think that the team should have an option to just, you know, send one guy out to the podium and just answer 5 questions and that's it, and get the damn media out of the room, because they definitely don't help.
Oh, it should be Dion, probably.
Yeah, send the caveman out to the podium and let him answer 5 questions. And he's groomed enough now that he seems to be able to do it capably. And just get them out of the room, because the little scrums where they go from player to player and just try and piss them off really doesn't help a team like this. And I know the league expects interviews and whatnot, but if I were the Leafs, I would be making some kind of exception deal to get out of that for now.
Yeah, well, last year Phil went a couple of weeks without talking to the media.
Yeah, well, and I don't know what kind of deal the NHL has. If it's anything like the NFL, then, you know, you get fined for not talking to them, but then you can Marshawn Lynch all you want and just pick one catchphrase and say it over and over again hilariously.
That's what they should do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do until they left me alone. And I would encourage all my teammates to do that too, so they will never get a story out of the room.
Phil Kessel, he's a talented player. He'll get you or whatever.
Yeah, he's a classic superstar scorer. He's like a wide receiver in the NFL. He's like a diva. You just kind of leave him alone, let him do his thing. So
is that worth $8 million? Would you rather have?
It is when he scores. It's worth $8 million when he scores 40 goals.
Is he worth more than like a John Tavares?
Absolutely not.
Who gets paid about? I think he's between 6 and 7 or something like that.
Yeah, so that was the other thing, the kind of Don Cherry moment that I was avoiding was, you know, they built their core around American players when Burke was there, like guys like Bozak, Kessel, Van Riemsdyk. Yeah, there's not enough heart in those guys, and I don't know if it's a Canadian thing or not, but you look at all the third liners and fourth liners, you know, predominantly Eastern European, had a hard life, or Canadian, and just grind it out.
That's why they brought in Dubas and Mark Hunter, because they've been around the OHL for a while.
Yeah,
the
gotta draft some Canadian guys. And I know there's a lot of guys from around Toronto on the team, like Franzen, etc. But I really think, I look at a guy like Polak, and I watched him on Saturday night or Friday night or whenever they played the other game. And he was just giving her. He saw the team was playing like garbage, so when he went out, apparently his conditioning is unbelievable, but the guy was going out, he was in the offensive zone. He scored the only goal in 4 games, the goal in San Jose. Like, I mean, that's the kind of... Yeah,
your only goal for.
Yeah, he's not a skill guy, but he plays with a lot of heart and a lot of fight, and, that's the kind of guys you need on your team. If nothing else, he'll fire up the other guys. And once Kadri scored that goal the other night, which was a nice top corner shot, that all of a sudden they had life and they came out really hard for about 5 minutes and fell, completely short. But
yeah, well, it's hard to objectively look at hustle and heart and all that kind of stuff, which is again why they brought in the analytics guys to kind of look at it as objectively as possible.
But I think you have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
Would you rather have Tyler Seguin on your team or Phil Kessel?
Honestly, probably Tyler Seguin. He's 22.
Well, beyond age, what other intangibles do you look at?
Centerman is leading the league in points or close to that. Well, he's not leading the league in points, but he's right up there.
He plays a lot bigger than his size, and Kessel plays a lot smaller than his size.
Yeah. No, I always go back to the Brian Burke, Phil Kessel.
Yeah, I know how you feel about that deal.
He fell in. I don't know if you read. Did you read that article that Google?
No, I didn't.
Well, it goes through since about 2003, I think, and how few draft picks they've had over the years, and all the GMs fall into the same trap. They make, like, it talks about when they traded for Owen Nolan and Brian Leach and Glenn Wesley and all these duds who, at the end of their careers, and at least they're trying to make a last-minute playoff push. And they traded away Tuukka Rask for Andrew Raycott. So Burke fell into the same trap where he gave away 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks.
Yeah, and I think a big chunk of that is the pressure from the media and the fan base to do it right now. We want it right now, so they half-ass, make a couple of moves, try and save their job, and then they get fired regardless, and the team is no better off than they were. They just have a different cast of the same characters.
But now, imagine if they had... I don't even know who the Bruins took for their second-round picks, but if you have multiple pieces... like
wasn't Torrey Krug one of those picks?
It could have been.
Or
I don't know.
Was it Boychuk?
No, Boychuk's like 30 years old.
Yeah, it wasn't him.
So yeah, that's what you need is multiple pieces. Like Chicago, they've got like an all-star team for their first line almost.
Yeah, but they're playing terribly because they don't have the solid goaltending, and they let their defense kind of get away from them.
Well, but they still won 2 Stanley Cups in the last.
Yeah, that's true.
Year.
Compared to the 0 that the Leafs have won in our entire lifetimes.
But you need multiple pieces, so they put all their eggs in one basket with Phil Kessel for that short term, for that 2 years or whatever it was, where they gave up the draft picks.
Yeah, and if he played with Matt Sundin, it'd be a different story.
Yeah.
But they do.
Burke just fell into the same Toronto GM trap that they all do. That's what the cycle they need to break is stop pissing away the future.
Yeah, I think they need to actually draft players and develop them for the next 3 drafts at least.
Yeah.
Stop trading away draft picks.
Like if they had Hamilton and Seguin right now, and who knows? Who knows where they? Hey?
Who knows what spice. No, they wouldn't have Carey Price. I think Montreal would have a shit hemorrhage if that happened.
Oh, he was drafted in 05, maybe?
Yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. Anyways, we digress from the debate. So, I think, not only because I'm the host and control all of this, but I'm pretty sure that I won. You also had some strong points.
They need to show more hustle and just work harder, and then you'll see what you've got. Then you see what you've got.
If they do it, I think you'll be shutting your mouth about blowing it up. That's for sure.
Here's a spoiler alert: they won't make the playoffs this year. They probably won't trade it. I'll be surprised if they move one of the big three contracts.
Here's another spoiler alert. They won't finish anywhere near the McDavid sweepstakes. They'll finish 10th or 11th in the conference.
And the abyss where they usually finish.
Yeah. Although the collapse this year has started well ahead of schedule. Usually they save this for March when it's really devastating for a playoff run. If somehow they pull it out of their butts and have a Colorado Rockies type of run and win 20 games in a row, we could be having a different conversation here.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what they'll do. It'll look like doom and gloom until just at the last minute. Then they'll go on a big tear and finish 9th in the conference.
Yeah, when the pressure's off, that's when they start to heat up. They've done that the last 2 years. Once it's a well-known fact that they're out of the playoffs, they go on a big push and then just work themselves into a terrible draft pick. They got to be more like Buffalo and just commit to being awful.
Yeah, well, that's the definition of blowing it up.
What, buying a whole bunch of players?
No, blowing it up. Committing to being awful. Just bottoming right out and being bad for about 3 to 5 years.
No, my definition of blowing it up is fire sailing away all your players, which there's a couple teams that are shaping up to do that this year.
Yeah, we probably should have established that definition at the start of this thing.
Well, that might have been wise, but hindsight's 20/20, and so is my vision. So with that, we'll shut it down here at 38 minutes and let everyone get on with their lives. Good luck and good night. Tugboat signing off.